The journey through the mountains was brutal. Jack and Vex trudged through narrow passes, their supplies dwindling with each step. The planet's suns had grown increasingly volatile, sending waves of radiation that made their scanners crackle with interference. Solar activity increasing, Vex reported, their skin showing patterns of concern. If flares continue, rescue ships cannot approach. Jack wiped sweat from his forehead, checking their makeshift radiation shield. How long until it's too bad for rescue? 3 days, maybe 4. Vex adjusted their scanner. Main facility 2 days ahead, if we don't stop. They pushed on through the night, using Vex's night vision to navigate the treacherous paths. The ancient facility's beacon grew stronger on their scanners, but so did the radiation warnings. Near dawn, they reached a sheer cliff face. The scanner showed the facility was at the top, but the climb looked impossible. I could climb it, Vex said, their lighter frames suited for scaling. Leave you here? No, Jack interrupted. We've survived this long by sticking together. We'll find another way. They discovered an old maintenance shaft, half hidden by rocks. Inside, ancient machinery still hummed faintly. Jack's cargo handling experience helped them navigate the vertical shaft service ladders, while Vex's technology kept the ancient systems running just enough to prevent a collapse. Halfway up, the shaft groaned. Metal screamed against metal as centuries-old supports began to fail. They climbed faster, adrenaline pushing them beyond exhaustion. Above, Vex called out, "Opening." They scrambled through the exit just as the shaft collapsed behind them. Before them stood their goal, the main communication facility, its tall array stretching toward the angry skies. Inside, they found the control room in better condition than the monitoring station. But as Vex examined the systems, their skin turned a deep gray. Power systems degraded. Need complete restart. They turned to Jack. Must split tasks. One to restart power core, one to calibrate array. A massive solar flare lit up the sky outside, making their sensors scream. Time was running out. I'll handle the power, Jack said, knowing Vex's technical skills were needed for the array. Just tell me what to do. As they prepared to separate, both knew this was their last chance. Either they would succeed together or fail alone. The suns above them flared again, a reminder that sometimes survival meant racing against not just danger, but time itself. Their new shelter sat high in the mountains, overlooking the vast alien landscape. Jack had reinforced the natural cave opening with salvaged metal, while Vex's force fields hummed softly, creating an invisible barrier against the hostile world outside. The planet's 3 moons cast eerie shadows as night fell. Jack checked their defenses one last time before settling down to eat his rations. Vex sat nearby, consuming nutrient paste through a specialized mask. The scanner beeped suddenly, making both of them jump. Vex's fingers moved quickly across the device, multiple life forms approaching. Fast. Jack grabbed his makeshift weapon. A cargo pole modified into a spear. Through the cave's entrance, they could hear chittering sounds growing closer. Vex adjusted the force field's strength, their skin turning a pale gray with anxiety. The first creature appeared in the moonlight, a 6-legged beast with razor-sharp claws and multiple rows of teeth. More followed, at least a dozen. They looked like a horrific cross between wolves and insects. Field won't hold long against so many, Vex's translator crackled. Need plan. Jack noticed how the creatures reacted to the force field's energy. They flinched away from the brighter spots. Can you create a pulse with that field? Something bright. Vex understood immediately. Their fingers flew across the control panel while Jack readied his spear for any that got through. The first creature slammed into the force field, its claws leaving energy ripples. Others joined the assault, the barrier beginning to flicker under their combined weight. Ready, Vex announced. But only one burst possible. Power cells low. Wait for it. Jack watched as more creatures gathered. The force field was failing. Wait. The largest beast reared back for another strike. Now. Vex triggered the pulse. Brilliant light flooded the area, accompanied by a thunderous crack. The creatures screamed, their sensitive eyes overwhelmed. They retreated in panic, some falling off the mountain path in their desperation to escape. In the aftermath, Jack and Vex stood in the darkness, breathing heavily. The force field was dead, but they were alive. Quick thinking. Vex's translator hummed. Most humans I knew preferred to shoot everything. Jack started gathering materials to build a physical barrier. Most aliens I knew preferred to run away. Guess we're both surprising. They worked through the night, strengthening their defenses. Jack showed Vex how to create alarm systems with simple tripwires, while Vex taught him about the local predators' weaknesses. Each found themselves impressed by the other's knowledge and adaptability. As the first sun rose, they surveyed their improved shelter. It wasn't pretty, but it would keep them alive. They had survived their first real test as a team. "We make good partners," Vex observed, their skin showing patterns of blue trust. Jack nodded, realizing how naturally they had learned to work together. Sometimes, the best allies came from the most unexpected places. The first rays of the alien sun brought new challenges. Jack woke to find the cave's temperature had risen from freezing to uncomfortably hot in just hours. Beside him, Vex was examining a small device salvaged from their crashes. Scanner shows large predators sleep during day. Vex's translator buzzed. Time to gather supplies. They returned to their crashed ships under the harsh double suns. Jack's cargo hold was a mess, but some supplies had survived. He found water purifiers, emergency rations, and basic tools. Vex's ship yielded more advanced technology, medical devices, energy cells, and scanning equipment. "Your wound healing?" Jack asked, watching Vex move stiffly through the wreckage. The alien's skin shifted colors slightly. Something Jack was learning indicated pain. "Better. Your medicine different, but helped." Vex paused, 4 eyes focusing on Jack. "Why assist enemy?" Jack stopped sorting through debris. "Enemy. Our species. War, long ago, before my time. Still, most humans shoot first." Jack shrugged, lifting a broken panel. "Well, I'm not most humans. Besides, we got bigger problems right now." He pointed to the scanner in Vex's hand. "That thing tell you anything about this planet?" Vex clicked rapidly, which Jack now recognized as their version of typing. Atmosphere barely sustainable. Temperature shifts extreme. Local life forms. A screech in the distance finished that thought. They spent hours combining salvage from both ships. Vex's technical knowledge proved invaluable, showing Jack how to connect human and alien power systems. By midday, they had created a defendable shelter in the cave, using ship panels for walls and jury-rigged force fields for protection. "Impressive engineering," Jack admitted, watching Vex calibrate the barriers. "Your people must be far ahead of us technologically." Vex's skin rippled with blue patterns. Amusement, Jack guessed. Yet you humans survive with basic tools. Adapt quickly. Interesting species. Their conversation was cut short by a deep rumbling. The scanner in Vex's hand lit up with warnings. Underground movement. Large creature. The cave floor cracked beneath them. Jack grabbed their emergency pack as Vex snatched up the vital tech. They barely made it outside before their shelter collapsed, revealing a massive worm-like creature breaking through the rock. Without speaking, they ran. Jack led them to higher ground, remembering his survival training about getting above burrowing predators. Vex kept pace despite their injury, scanning constantly for other threats. Finally, they'd reached a high ridge. Looking back, they watched the worm creature retreat underground, leaving their shelter in ruins. "Well," Jack said between heavy breaths, "guess we need a new home." Vex's translator crackled with what might have been a laugh. "Perhaps staying alive together is more important than old wars." Jack smiled. "Agreed. Now that scanner of yours show any good caves higher up, preferably without giant worms." As they planned their next move, both realized their survival would depend on trusting each other completely. Sometimes, Jack thought, the worst situations brought out the best alliances. The red warning lights flashed across Jack's cockpit as his cargo ship plummeted through the thick atmosphere. Sweat dripped down his forehead while he fought with the controls, trying to keep the dying vessel level. The meteor storm had come out of nowhere, ripping through his shields like paper and shredding one of his engines. Come on, he muttered, scanning the alien landscape below for anywhere suitable to crash land. Through the clouds, he spotted a relatively flat plateau amidst the jagged mountain range. It would have to do. The ship screamed in protest as he angled toward the plateau, hull plates tearing off from the stress. The ground rushed up to meet him with frightening speed. Jack braced himself, muscles tensing as he made one final effort to level out. The impact came like a hammer blow. When Jack regained consciousness, his ship lay in pieces around him. The emergency containment field had saved his life, but the cargo hold was completely destroyed. Pain shot through his ribs as he climbed out of the wreckage. The air was thin but breathable, though it carried a sharp metallic taste. A second trail of smoke caught his attention. Another ship had crashed about half a mile away, its sleek silver hull unlike anything he'd seen before. Without thinking twice, Jack grabbed his emergency kit and headed toward it. If someone else was stranded here, they needed to stick together. As he approached the wreck, he heard strange clicking sounds. Through a tear in the ship's hull, he saw movement. A tall, slender figure stumbled out, its iridescent skin reflecting the planet's harsh sunlight. The alien was clutching its side, where a dark fluid seeped between its long fingers. The creature spotted Jack and reached for something at its belt. Jack raised his hand slowly, showing he was unarmed. "Easy there," he said calmly. "I'm not looking for trouble." The alien's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as it studied him. After a tense moment, it lowered its hand and made a series of clicking sounds. A small device on its wrist lit up, translating the clicks into broken English. "Help. Injured. Dangerous here." Just then, an ear-splitting screech echoed across the plateau. Both Jack and the alien turned to see large, winged shapes circling overhead. The alien's translator crackled. "Predators. Must find shelter." Jack pointed to a nearby cave entrance. "In there. Can you walk?" The alien took a stumbling step and nearly collapsed. Without hesitation, Jack moved to support it, noticing how surprisingly light it was despite being a head taller than him. Together, they limped toward the cave as the screeching grew louder. Inside the cave, Jack helped the alien sit against a wall. "I'm Jack," he said, pulling out his medkit. The alien touched its chest with its uninjured hand. "Vex," the translator conveyed. Jack nodded, examining the wound. He'd never treated an alien before, but basic first aid had to be better than nothing. As he worked to stop the bleeding, Jack couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. Here he was, stranded on a deadly planet, treating an alien's wounds while monster birds circled outside. His cargo company definitely hadn't covered this scenario in the training manual. Night was falling, and the temperature was dropping rapidly. They would need to figure out a more permanent solution soon, but for now, they were alive. Sometimes, Jack thought, that had to be enough. A week had passed since their first battle together. Food supplies were running low, forcing Jack and Vex to venture further from their mountain shelter. They followed Vex's scanner readings through a deep valley, searching for anything edible. Energy signature ahead. Vex's translator buzzed. Not organic. Artificial. Jack adjusted his grip on his spear, following Vex's lead. The valley opened into a wide basin, and both stopped in amazement. Before them stood the remains of a massive structure, its metallic walls half buried in the planet's soil. This architecture, Vex's skin rippled with excitement. Ancient, predates both our civilizations. They approached carefully, watching for predators. The entrance was partially collapsed, but they managed to squeeze through. Inside, emergency lights still flickered weakly, powered by some unknown source. "Think anyone's home?" Jack asked, examining strange symbols on the walls. Vex scanned the area. Structure abandoned, but systems still active. "Look." They pointed to a holographic display sputtering to life. The images showed the planet's history. It had once been a thriving world, transformed by an ancient species to support life. But something had gone wrong. The terraforming system had malfunctioned, turning the planet hostile instead of habitable. These controls, Vex clicked rapidly, still functional, could be modified. Into a distress beacon, Jack finished, understanding. Use their communication array to signal for help. They explored deeper, finding a central control room. Vex's technical knowledge proved invaluable as they studied the alien systems. Jack's practical experience helped them bypass damaged sections and jury-rig power connections. Main array located higher, Vex indicated. In mountains, this facility just monitoring station. Jack checked their remaining supplies. "So we need to find the main facility." "How far?" Before Vex could answer, the ground trembled. Through the ancient facility's windows, they saw a massive shape moving in the valley. The giant worm that had destroyed their first shelter. "Back exit," Jack whispered. Quietly, they crept through the facility's rear passages, emerging on the opposite side of the valley. The worm seemed focused on the structure they'd just left, perhaps attracted by the power systems they'd activated. "Scanner shows main facility 5 days' journey," Vex said as they put distance between themselves and the worm. Through mountain range, Jack watched the ancient building sink into the ground, consumed by the creature. "Well, at least we know there's a way off this rock. If we can reach it." Both knew the journey would be dangerous, but they had found something precious: hope. As they headed toward the mountains, Jack realized how far they'd come from being crashed enemies to trusted allies. Sometimes, he thought, the greatest discoveries weren't places or technology, but the bonds forged in survival. The ancient facility's corridors echoed with warning alarms. Jack raced through the lower levels, following Vex's instructions to reach the power core. Above, Vex worked frantically to calibrate the communication array before the next solar flare hit. "Power systems at 20%, Jack reported through their salvage communicator. "Need at least 80 for broadcast strength." Vex's response came through static. Array almost aligned. But scanners show something else. Large group approaching. Like night attackers, but more. Jack reached the core room, his hands flying over the controls as Vex had shown him. The ancient machinery hummed to life, but too slowly. Through the facility's windows, he saw dark shapes moving across the mountainside. "Jack," Vex's translator crackled. "Must tell truth. My people shot your ship first. We're testing new weapons. I was part of test." The power level crawled to 40% as Jack processed this revelation. "Why tell me now?" "Because next part dangerous. Someone must hold creatures back while other completes broadcast. Should be me. My fault, you hear." The first of the creatures reached the facility's outer doors. Jack could hear them tearing at the metal. 60% power. "No," Jack said firmly. "You know the array systems. I'll hold them off." Sometimes the best way to end old hatred is to trust your former enemy. Before Vex could protest, Jack sealed the lower-level doors. He positioned himself at the main entrance, spear ready, as the power hit 70%. The doors burst open. Dozens of the wolf-like creatures poured in, their chittering echoing off the walls. Jack met them with determination, his spear keeping them at bay. Every second he bought was another chance for Vex to succeed. "Power at 80%, he shouted into his communicator as he fought. "Array ready?" "Almost. Need few more minutes." Vex's reply was barely audible over the battle. Jack fought like never before, each movement buying precious time. He was knocked down, rolled, got up again. Blood ran from cuts on his arms, but he didn't yield. Sometimes, he realized, The greatest victories came through standing your ground, no matter the cost. The facility shook as another solar flare struck. Jack was cornered, his spear broken, using a piece of fallen metal as a shield against the relentless creatures. Blood dripped from his wounds, but he stood his ground. Broadcast ready. Vex's voice crackled through the communicator. But need more power. Rerouting facility's emergency systems. The lights flickered and died, plunging Jack into darkness with the predators. Their glowing eyes surrounded him, moving closer. In the blackness, he heard Vex's translator. Sending signal now. Hold position. The ancient array hummed to life, its energy lighting up the mountain peak. The creatures hesitated, sensitive to the power surge. Jack used the moment to retreat toward the upper levels, sealing doors behind him. Signal sent, Vex announced. But creatures breaking through to array controls. Need protect equipment until rescue arrives. They reunited in the control room, Jack bloody but standing, Vex's skin showing patterns of both worry and determination. Together, they barricaded the entrance. Hours passed. The creatures clawed at their defenses while solar flares battered the facility. They were running out of options when a new sound cut through the chaos. Engines. 2 ships appeared through the storm of radiation, a human rescue vessel and a sleek alien craft. The creatures scattered as landing lights illuminated the facility. Your people and mine, Vex observed. Both received signal. Armed rescue teams breached the facility, securing the area. They found Jack and Vex defending their position together, neither willing to abandon the other. The debriefing was tense. Both rescue teams were suspicious, old rivalries surfacing. But Jack and Vex's story, their shared survival, mutual trust, and final sacrifice, sparked something new. Perhaps, the human captain said, it's time for proper talks between our species. As they prepared to leave on their respective ships, Jack turned to Vex. Next time we meet, hopefully it won't be on a deadly planet. Vex's skin showed colors Jack had never seen. Happiness mixed with friendship. Already arranging diplomatic position on Earth Station. Someone must ensure new alliance works. Sometimes, Jack thought as they departed, the greatest journeys weren't about distance traveled, but barriers broken. Their ordeal had done more than save their lives. It had begun healing wounds between their peoples that were centuries old. Looking back at the hostile planet one last time, he smiled. Sometimes the deadliest places birth the strongest bonds.